Hello, this is John, host of Mgtow is Freedom. I've done a pretty popular video series on my other channel. It's called The Problem With. Of course, that other channel is called The Prepared Mind, and it deals with shit hitting the fan, the apocalypse. This channel, we deal with personal apocalypse in the form of wayward bitches who want to make our lives incredibly difficult by stealing everything they can from us and destroying us psychologically. Kind of a personal shit it's the fan. So I thought, hey, why not? Why not do the Problem With series over here on Mgtow is Freedom? And I'm going to start with the granddaddy of them all, the problem with entitlement. Entitlement is that beautiful frame of mind whereby one person, class of person, group of people decide that what someone else has, they deserve. And someone else should provide it for them. By the way, this is a Arturo Fuente Hemingway short story. Delicious little cigar. All right, so on to entitlement. What is entitlement? An entitlement, in the statutory sense, is a benefit or privilege that is extended onto a class of citizens by the government. A social entitlement is a benefit that is bestowed upon someone based on a belief system within a social movement, within the social construct. Both of them have an effect in the Mgtow world, in the world of men. So let's start with the birthplace of the entitlement. And that has to do with, in America, sometime after the Civil War. Our nation was destroyed. We had nation fighting nation, so our country, our land here, was responsible for funding both sides of the war. And both sides of the nation itself suffered psychological trauma from both sides. It was destroyed financially, psychologically. The Civil War was horrible for this country. And what came out of that was a rebuilding system. It was based on a new version of reality, and that is that the government, the federal government, is the boss. We went in with a national government and we came out with a federal government. And please forgive this explanation, but I think it's important to set up the discussion about entitlements. It's not a light subject. It has had very profound and far-reaching and deep implications in our lives as men. Because at the time, it was men that ran the world. It was men who were responsible for everything. Men paid for everything with their efforts. And women were part of the service industry, or they were wives. And that was it. But the women's suffrage movement, the temperance movement, other movements that were started by women led to the destruction of our culture. The government, it was voted upon, gave women the right to vote, when in truth it's actually the privilege to vote. Now you can argue all day long with me, women, I just don't give a fuck. In order to declare your rights, you've got to go to war and physically defeat your enemy. It is your right as a sovereign nation to attack another. It is your right as a sovereign individual to tell the king to go fuck himself. That is what men do. Women don't do that. Women use the agency. Women use the power. Women use the physical muscle of men to get what they want. There's a large difference between the sexes and how they get what they want. What they got was the right to vote. That became an entitlement to women. And who gave it to them? The government. Men look to God, to the Almighty, to the unseen power of the universe that created us. And we say it is from Him or it, or whatever you want to call your God, that we derive our rights from. Women look to government. They look to City Hall, they look to Washington, D.C., and they say, I'm entitled to this because the government gave it to me. And they believe that entitlement to be real and that others have to pay for it. Entitlement. That concept has since grown into the entitlement of telling others what to do, of demanding from others to recognize them when they should really be recognizing themselves. Men recognize the greatness of themselves and other men. Women look to other men to give them what they want. They look to men and the government to give them what they want. That is where their sense of entitlement extends from. They're fucked. They've got entitlements. We have right to life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, everything, property, locomotion. But entitlements, those are legal entitlements. The right to vote. Women now own property. They've owned it for quite some time. But at what cost? What was the expense? Who paid for it? Men have paid for it and continue to pay for it. Those are legal or statutory entitlements. They're granted by government. Now let's look at social entitlements. When you take a group of people, that is a social construct, and you have one group of people who are superior and one group that is inferior. And you look to the men and you say, you men, you have the right and the ability and the sovereign nature to fight for what is yours. It is a matter of honor. It is a matter of being a man. We understand what it means to be men and what the cost is. And socially, we don't look to others to do that for us. Women look to others to recognize them. So they complain, they whine, they bitch, they piss, they moan. That is what women do, and they do it very well. And they've badgered men. Not only did they badger them for statutory entitlements, but then they began to badger them for social entitlements, to recognize their feelings, and to somehow make that more important than rights. It's a Glenfiddich single malt 12-year Scotch. Neat. Mighty tasty. Social entitlements, they aren't enforced by law. They're enforced with social punishments and social rewards. But women don't play the game very well. They don't play it nicely. They demand that you respect them as women when they've done nothing respectable. They demand things like special privileges. You should not say anything mean to them. But they complain that white men have entitlement, that men, period, have entitlement, that we have privilege. They call it check your privilege, right? Check your privilege, white guy. Check your privilege, man. I don't have privileges. I have rights. Women have privileges and entitlements, and they want to drag us down to where they're at. And once you get down in the mud with a feminist, with an entitled feminist, you're playing her game instead of yours. They expect you to not fight back, to accept them the way they are, to accept that what they say is truth. The problem with entitlement socially is it's enforceable only at your loss as a man. So as Mgtow, men going our own way, men going their own way, you don't have to play the entitlement game with them. Now statutorily, we have to respect certain elements of the law, which I really don't agree with. But as it is, I have to. Or someone will show up with a gun and put it in my face and tell me I have to pay fines. But when it comes to social, I don't have to do that. I don't have to play the social entitlement game. If I'm standing somewhere and someone says, "Excuse me," I may step aside. But when I'm standing somewhere and a woman walks up, a feminist woman, and demands that I step aside, demands I recognize her, demands I give her attention, demands that I pay for her in some fashion, I do not agree with that, and I will not abide it. The reason women are the problem they are today, these feminist whores, is because we have accepted their claim that their social entitlements matter. This demand to use political correct speech has now been so bastardized that men have to according to these crazy feminists, accept every crazy fucking thing they say. Everything. Name something a feminist says, you have to accept it. You have to agree with them. And if you do not, you are called names. You are terrorized that way. You are shamed, which is an effort to make you follow them. They give you guilt, which is trying to put on you the acceptance of their plight as women. It is not my fault women are women. I don't give a fuck. The only time I give a fuck is if that woman is under my control. That is, she is my woman, therefore I accept responsibility for her and what she costs. And if she's not my woman, then I do not. Am I a bigot? Am I a sexist? I don't give a fuck. Those are just labels.